I want to make one thing clear at the start of this video, and it's that I do not believe in the concept of the gray man as we know it. I do believe that there's life outside our solar system, but our consciousness can't even fathom how vast and endless the universe is. We are stardust when compared to the totality of space, and therefore I believe that the probability of alien beings looking like a bunch of humanoid spandex wearing gray entities is actually pretty low. That being said though, I do on the contrary believe that it makes an amazing setting for a video game. Being out in the dark as you try to save your friends and family, all while trying to keep your black hole just the way that it is, would make for a thrilling series of events. I was also surprised that it took this long to make a game that took its subject matter seriously and tried to tell the typical story of an alien invasion happening in a small defenseless town. I mean, it basically writes itself, right? Neighbors hate the government and therefore decide to arm themselves to the teeth in order to defend their turf. Goofy characters throw conspiracies left and right while forcing everyone to wear their famous tinfoil hat, which, ironically enough, is one of the goodies that comes with the pre-order of the physical copy. Add in some shooting, scavenging, and the drama basically writes itself, so I was immediately on board. Unfortunately though, saying that the game is bad doesn't even start to depict just how boring it all was just to go through. It suffers from the typical issues that arise when the company makes their first game too big for them to handle. It has a badly written script, which is only rivaled by its subpar voice acting.
Henry, tell me what you saw in the forest today.
You should ask Rachel, that crazy girl.
Henry, there's someone in your room. Is Rachel in there?
God, I hope not. She should stop bothering me.
It has uninspired mission designs, which combined with its lack of player guidance, makes any and all fetch quests a slog to go through, and worse still, they found a way to make alien invaders goofy and not threatening, killing any sense of tension and intrigue that surrounds them. Come here, I want to manhandle those buns. Tickle, 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 tickle. Aw man, get back here. Well shit, I die now, bye. All this suffering for a game that ends abruptly, leaving a lot of unresolved concepts while sequel baiting in the worst way imaginable. It's no mystery to me why this game's rating is currently mostly negative on Steam, as it has way too many fundamental issues plaguing it, making this another game that no amount of patches will be able to fix it to a purchasable state. The game starts with a very lengthy dialogue exchange that explains mostly everything you need to know about the start of the game. The people living in this town strongly believe that the government and all their affiliates are purposefully hiding the existence of aliens. They therefore felt betrayed, and it's in that distrust that grew the desire to become independent. They therefore decide to take matters into their own hands by defending their home from outside invaders. That's why when sightings of strange beings hiding in the cornfield were heard, people proceeded to nail their doors and windows shut. Also, because they knew that no one would show up in their time of need, the townfolk decided to unite and create a neighborhood watch, which is where we come in. You play as an average American called Ryan Baker, and with the use of your trusted walkie-talkie, your goal is to coordinate the whole event with the other members of the group. At the same time that we're doing all of this, we get to look at the eerie scenery that makes this town, and overall, I would say that it does a very good job of making us feel the place while giving us a sense of severity of the situation. But as good as this is though, there are two problems with this approach. Number one, it's a huge exposition dump with no visuals to support what's happening. We're told what we need to know in such an emotionally detached way that it's impossible to get a feel of the people living in this town. The second problem is related to the script itself. People don't talk in natural ways and often state things that everybody knows, and here's an example that proves what I'm saying in the first cutscene.
Trust me, you don't want to end up in the psych ward. I've paid a high price to break free. The only way to escape was to...
You've told your stupid story 1,000 times. In Vietnam, we dealt with things worse than that almost every day.
What does Vietnam have to do with it? Whatever. I always wear my tinfoil hat when I leave my camper van. I believe the aliens have the ability to control us through telepathic powers. I'm convinced that the hat protects me.
Hey, guys. Henry's been acting strange since he came home from the forest this morning. I don't know what's going on with him.
Ryan! Hey, my kitty cat's also behaving really strangely, and she hasn't come home yet. Please, look for her during your shift. I'm really lonely without her.
Henry is more important right now, but if I find your cat, I'll let you know, Bob.
Here are a few things that stood out to me when I heard this dialogue exchange. First of all, they should all know why he's wearing a tinfoil hat, especially because they're getting ready for what they believe is an alien invasion. Why the devs decided to tell it to us now when it actually becomes more relevant later is beyond me. Secondly, why mention the Vietnam War? It came out of nowhere and doesn't fit the context of the situation unless it's something that will be important later on, which again is the same kind of lazy writing. Thirdly, there's no chemistry between the characters. The veteran guy, whose name is Brandon by the way, tramples Bob's concerns and then doesn't even bother to reply when he continues. Then out of nowhere, our character abruptly shows up to share his concerns about his son, to which the previous guy completely ignores his worries because he values his cat more than this guy's son. Let me remind you that I will probably have to work with these people later on, as the devs thought that it was important for me to meet them right at the start of this game. Lastly, they jump from one subject to another, making it feel more like the devs were going to a checklist than an actual dialogue exchange. It doesn't sound natural in any way, it feels forced. And that's before we start analyzing the bad voice acting, which gets worse the further you get into the game.
Is this Kitty? My cat?
Yeah, I caught her out in the field near the tractor.
Oh, what does she have on her head?
I don't know. It makes a strange noise. It sounds like electricity or something. Oh, and Bob, I had a strange encounter in my backyard. There was also some kind of weird electricity. I'll tell you about it later. Let's look at the cat
Put her on the
first.
table. I'll take a closer look.
In other words, we're only 3 minutes in and this game has already started me on the bad foot, but I still have like another 3 hours before the end of the game, so surely they have enough time to develop these characters, right? Well, no, not really. You see, that's pretty much it when it comes to the storytelling and character design. Not long after that scene, aliens show up and kidnap your son. You do get some dialogue exchange through the walkie-talkie, but it's mostly radio silent until more exposition is necessary in order to give you the next fetch quest. That means that what we've heard so far is basically what we get. Granted though, I only showed you a portion of the whole cutscene, so trust me when I say that it doesn't get any better or more revealing than this. That means that characters in this game end up being a living stereotype of the genre. Brandon is so proud of the fact that he went to Vietnam that him and his daughter's bed sheets are the American flag decal. They have pictures on their walls which relate to the war in one way or another, which I think is honestly a little extreme. I mean, it's one thing to cartoonishly glorify something, and it's another one for it to go as far as to destroy any form of realism needed in order to make it feel like a satire of the people that you're portraying. Bob, on the other hand, is the stereotype of the conspiracy theorist. He wears a tinfoil hat and has a huge stash of them in his dining area. He's also the only character who lives in an RV and looks obviously a little crazy. His biggest character trait is that he got abducted by aliens in the past and somehow survived without explaining it in any way. The irony is that we probably could use this knowledge, as our goal is to save our son from the abduction. At no moment do we or he feel the need to share his story with us, which is weird considering that the devs like to share information that the character already knows. That brings us to the main problem plaguing the story, which is that there's a lot of things that don't make sense or are never utilized or explained. For example, early on in the game, your dog runs away in the field of corn in order to follow a random light that appears in the field. I don't know about you, but if my dog ran away like that, I would definitely try to get it back in order to lock him inside the house. But in this game, we just continue our task as if nothing had happened. I guess I should have expected it, as this game made it clear from the start that only cats seem to be important in this universe. Speaking of cats though, we do find Bob's cat later on, and he has blue lights on him for some reason. The game never explains what they are, and the characters never even tried to investigate it. His cat just has alien tech on him, and no one even seems to care, even if his owner is obsessed with the existence of aliens and even published a book about the whole experience. In the end, the devs just needed a reason to send you in the field in order to make you wonder what has been killing the cows this whole time. In other words, stuff happens because it needs to happen, regardless if it makes sense or not. By far the worst example of this is when a cop car shows up randomly and crashes in a tree. We look through the window, and not only is the car empty for some reason, the cop left a top secret document on the passenger seat stating that the government knew that an alien invasion was going to happen on this specific night. You know what our character proceeds to do with that document? Absolutely freaking nothing. We just leave it there and grab the only gun in town, which also doesn't make any sense. I mean, this is the United States of America at the end of the 20th century. These people don't believe in the government or in the police for that matter, so you would think that people would arm themselves, but nope. On the flip side, you will find some ammunition scattered on the kitchen counters, making it one more instance where the devs ignored all form of logic or continuity. A few minutes later, the cop calls us on the walkie and tells us that he woke up in a barn with no recollection of what happened. That lets us assume that he got abducted abducted and they sort of gave up on him halfway? It's weird because we quickly learned that aliens don't just abandon their future test subjects that easily. And let me remind you that we didn't see any blue lights or aliens so far in the game, so again, it just doesn't make any sense. Anyways, he tells us randomly that we need to collect 5 rolls of tinfoil before we lose his signal and he gets abducted. Again, why we can't grab the foil located inside of Bob's RV is beyond me, but the weird part is that we're never told why we need it until the very end of the game. Honestly, I just thought that the game just asked us to pick it up in order to pad the game time. All quests are fetch quests in this game, and there's nothing more irritating than having to do all of it while the NPCs just look at us with contempt as we run around the place trying to not get probed. In the end though, we get all the tinfoil because the cop miraculously succeeds in surviving a probing, making him one of the only 2 characters that survive an encounter with an alien, period. Well, other than us, of course, but like, I'll get to that later. You see where I'm going with this, right? He survived because the plot requires that he uses his last breath to give us the one phone number to reach the only guy he knows that survived an alien attack and who knows how we can save our son. He's also the one that told the cop that covering a person in tinfoil makes them somehow immune to the aliens in a way that isn't explained. This is a pattern that happens all the freaking time in this game, I swear. By the way, if this kind of storytelling isn't bad enough, look how this guy dies after he gives us the number.
I never thought I'd die in a goddamn graveyard.
Apone! Don't die, goddammit! Where the fuck am I gonna find a working phone?
I swear, when I saw this death scene, I freaking laughed. It is the best and worst scene in the game by far, I swear. It is freaking hilarious. Now, I want to spoil the ending to this game because I think that by far the ending is way worse than everything that you've seen so far. So, if you don't want spoils for some reason, here is the timestamp for where you have to go, where I essentially talk about the gameplay of the game. Throughout the game, your goal is to find a way to save your son, but nothing that you or anyone else has done has gotten you close to realizing that goal. That's why it's even more convenient that the man on the other side of the phone line tells you that the only way you can get your son back is by wrapping yourself in tinfoil for some reason and letting yourself get abducted. Here is the only explanation that we get as to why this plan will work.
Wrap your entire body in the tinfoil. Completely cover yourself head to toe and let them abduct you. I know this sounds crazy, but if you want your son back, you have to trust me.
Seriously?
Yep, trusting the guy that we never heard of before, who hasn't provided us any proof for what he's saying, and who, at the end of the day, isn't even affected by our current situation. Awesome. Our character basically doesn't question anything as usual, so we still do as asked and conveniently use the foil that we've been carrying on our person for almost half the game now. One thing led to another and we end up finding Rachel, the daughter of the veteran, and just look at how stupidly the devs executed this scene.
Where is your son? Where's Henry?
They got him too.
Ryan, that sounds like a car.
What? They must be driving through town stopping for gas or something.
Hey, you weren't in Vietnam like my dad was, right?
No.
Well, can you check the window? God bless you.
Huh? Rachel, no! Where are you going? Stay! Ah!
Again, memorable for all the wrong reasons. I then obviously opened the door with the key located on the night table. Unfortunately for us, that ended up being exactly the moment where she started getting chased by the aliens because coincidences, I guess. We're then led through a cornfield and we're supposed to follow the girl's screams in order to know where we're supposed to go. In my case though, the game glitched and refused to execute the programming of the scene. After running around aimlessly for who knows how long, I pulled up a guide, got frustrated on my findings, and restarted the game. On a side note though, the game also doesn't always follow the rules that it sets for itself. Earlier in the game, we were taught that we can climb ladders, so imagine my surprise when I found a ladder that I couldn't climb, thinking that I needed pixel perfect position in order to make it happen, which by the way also is during that scene that glitched for me, so I genuinely thought that I was supposed to go up there. Anyways, after restarting the checkpoint, it finally worked and I was able to pick up the teddy bear that spawned on the ground magically. This is also where I met a few other aliens in the field. My logic when I saw them appear is that my goal is currently to get abducted. That's what the guy on the phone said. The game over voiceover screen also confirms that I do indeed get abducted, so I decided to just let it happen, you know? Turns out that the game wants us to get abducted on a very specific moment, so I guess that the foil only works when the devs decides that it works. Also, if the whole point for me was to get abducted, why can't I just cross the fence and enter one of their spaceships? It doesn't look guarded, so I could potentially recon the ship, you know, see what I have to face, and then get myself ready for an encounter. I could also try to steal the ship and use it to destroy the one and only ship that has been abducting people so far, but I guess that would require too much work from the development standpoint, and it would also make sense, which isn't what this game is clearly going for. With all that said, I redo the whole thing, evade the aliens, unlock the barn, and Bob not only is the only character that survived an encounter with an alien scratch-free, but he was also able to lock one in his room. Weirder still, he was somehow able to find the exact barn that contained us and the passed out body of Rachel. We bring Rachel inside the RV, and we hear an alien spaceship waiting for us to come outside because, you know, it's not like I can kidnap people through solid material. We then decide to sacrifice ourselves in order to let them leave, therefore succeeding in getting abducted. Finally, we're getting ourselves ready for the finale of the game, right? Getting our son back, seeing what the spaceship looks like, and getting ready for that final epic encounter, right? Everything has been really bad so far, so hopefully the ending is gonna pay for it.
Is it working? Henry? Henry?
Wait, what? That's it? We don't get to see inside the spaceship or what happened to our son? The kicker here is that there's a final scene after this one where we see Bob driving through the desert while Rachel is sleeping in the back. You remember the dog that ran away at the beginning of the video? He freaking survived and came back just in time for Bob to pick him up. Now they're on their way to meet the mysterious man who they've never met and don't know if he actually told the truth, but who cares, right? Who cares that Rachel's dad died from eternal bleeding and that she will never see him again? Who cares that no one in the village survived because he gets to write a book about it and they all get to form a family now. And let's not forget the alien who's been living in their bedroom who actually doesn't have a name, so I guess I'll just call him Paul, right? What a way to sequel bait, honestly. At the end of it all, I think that what disappoints me the most with the story is all that wasted potential. I think that the reason this setting works so well and has captivated people for centuries is that the possibilities are endless. It stems from the fear of the unknown and in a way is a reflection of us. We dream of understanding what we came from and why we exist, so without being able to find answers on Earth, we turn towards the skies. We seek comfort but are faced with a beautifully infinite void that refuses to answer the call. It makes us feel small, insecure, and vulnerable. To me, the gray beings represent the worst case scenario for us. They look like us but are uncanny in the worst way imaginable. They're also smarter than us and have technologies that we can only dream of, and they use it to not only hide from us but to abduct us. They traveled the vastness of our Milky Way in order to enter our personal Milky Way, and it's easy to understand why they captivate our hearts and influence so many things in our culture. The worst crime that this game commits is the fact that it doesn't have a story to tell, and the little that it does is poorly told at best. My only hope is that this game can redeem itself with its gameplay, and as much as I wish that it was the case, I unfortunately believe that gameplay is as bad as the story here, which is really sad because this game really needed a win, and unfortunately this just ain't it. The game starts with the characters hyping up the aliens. We're told that they're dangerous, they will abduct us and probe us at the first chance that they get, and God forbid if they actually go inside the house. I'm actually not joking, by the way, we're actually warned about this pretty early on.
Avoid using the flashlight. The Greys could see it immediately. And take note, it's important that they don't follow you into a house. If they do, we're screwed. If it becomes dangerous, hide in a car, a trash can, or something else.
All that to say that this game creates expectations right from the start, so when I finally got to my first encounter, I decided to test those claims and let myself be caught just so I can see what I'm up against, and here is what it actually looked like. In that one encounter, I essentially destroyed the game. This taught me 3 things. First of all, I can survive 5 hits in a row before I die as long as I can spam the E button. In other words, I will never die unless I get unlucky as hell or I let myself die on purpose. Secondly, the shitty baseball bat, which is also my starting weapon, requires timing because its reach is horrible, but when done right, it can push them back, even knocking them out entirely in the 3rd hit. Lastly, the music changes and lets you know when they're aware of your presence, which means that they will never jump scare you. You will always have enough time to pull out the baseball bat. On a side note, you can also get a revolver from the cop, which kills any aliens in 2 hits, but finding ammo is rare, and the gunshot can also attract aliens, which means that you will barely use it. You will also find other weapons in the game like an axe, but you simply can't wield it because the devs really intended in you using their shitty weapons. All combined, you have successfully trivialized the only enemy in the game, destroyed all tension, and have successfully turned your enemy into an annoying obstacle whose only purpose is to pan out the already short game. After further examination, they only seem to have 7 different animations. Walking randomly in normal walking speed, fast walking in alert mode in a straight line without any deviation or tricks because the AI is as basic as it gets. You will also have 3 different animations for when it gets hit, 2 with the baseball bat and 1 with the gun. There's also this really funny animation from when you shoot them twice and they crumble on the floor and die. Lastly, they also have an ability to scan the area when they're standing still. I personally don't believe that there's an animation when they grab us because it seems to me that the only thing moving is the screen and not the alien. That ultimately means that we never see them wield a weapon, try to block or evade our attacks, try to probe us even if we hear about it pretty often. There's also no consequences for them going inside the house as they don't have any extra animations than what I just mentioned here, so I don't understand why it was such a big deal. It's honestly jaw-dropping how minimalistic the encounter system is and how important it is to the whole game because it's basically the only real obstacle in the gameplay. It also doesn't help that making them easy to adapt and avoid damages the idea that we have of the playable character. All other NPCs disappear one way or another, but we're so talented at avoiding the aliens that it makes them look like a bunch of incompetent people while we get the god status. If we're also a simple American with no unique talents, then we wouldn't be the only ones going around the place trying to fix everything. I also think that if anyone should have had this status, it would be Bob, as this is technically his 2nd abduction, so he should already know what to do. To make matters worse, this is also one of those where the hell do I go kind of games. Let me give you an example. Near the start of the game, there's a part where you're talking on the walkie-talkie, and here's the full dialogue exchange between you and Brendan.
Ryan, something is wrong with Joe Parson, the farmer, you know? He called me a few minutes ago. He was very afraid. Then the radio connection became broken off by something. He is working on the field near your house. You must check immediately what happened to him.
Okay, I'll go check on him. By the way, someone was in Henry's room. They escaped out the window. I almost caught them in our shed, but there was a strange blue light. I'm sure
Pull
they're
yourself
here.
together. Have you seen the TV news? No one will help us. We're all boarding up our windows currently. I know how to shoot because of the Vietnam War, and you can handle the baseball bat. We will overcome this night and drive to our holiday home by tomorrow. Don't forget how I shot your son's hat off while wearing it when I was drunk at the barbecue last summer.
Brandon!
Imagine how
You
I can
still
handle
have
the
to
gun
pay
when
for
I'm
that.
sober.
Leaving town tomorrow sounds like a good idea. I'll keep you updated. Over and out.
At the end of the discussion, I remembered that I had to find a neighbor who lived in the field near my house, but where and how do I get there wasn't really explained, so I walked for... Actually, I don't really know how long. I walked in all directions, hitting a bunch of visible walls because yes, this game also has invisible walls limiting your play area. To be more specific, the devs add and remove the invisible walls when the story requires it, but because there's nothing in place to warn the player, he then isn't aware of when it is indeed the case. You can easily just hit a wall and decide to never check it up again, wasting time, and only in that act of desperation do you realize that now it's the way that you're supposed to go on. This then makes you question the game and forces you to start thinking outside the box. During my search for the fence, for example, I started wondering if there was a backwards way of leaving the area. I searched the house, went to the 2nd floor, found nothing, exited the house, went to the backyard. I then went back in front of the house, examined the fence again, went to the neighbors again, examined the fence. At one point, I realized I had forgotten what I was even doing. I spent so much time searching that I forgot why I was even searching. I therefore pressed a bunch of random buttons, only to discover that there's no log of any kind, no way to make a mission marker appear. There's also no audio script of any kind, and no way for the game to give you a hint or a warning of what you're supposed to do. That means that if you forget or didn't hear the dialogue right, the game won't help you and you're basically out of luck. In the end, I searched for about 20 minutes in real time and even closed my game recording software until I finally gave up and pulled out a guide. What I found seriously triggered me. I missed the fence when I walked on it on my first try because objects are never highlighted. The game also doesn't tell you that lights are randomly placed next to important objects, so at the time, it just seemed like something that had an aesthetic purpose. To top it off, you can only interact with something when the cursor is dead center on an object, so you will often miss something because you either went too fast over it or didn't know that you can interact with it to begin with. In the end, I ended up walking in circles for far too long and almost gave up before I even got the chance to see the aliens. You remember when I said that if you miss a dialogue, the game won't help you? Well, around the middle part of the game, I get into this random house and find a character who hid inside a huge safe. Why he thought that dying asphyxiated, dehydrated, and starving in a locked safe was better than being abducted is honestly beyond me, especially when they have the power of teleporting people through objects. Unfortunately for me though, right after the dialogue started, an alien showed up, so I missed the whole dialogue and I had no idea where I was supposed to look for the safe codes. That was essentially the moment where I just gave up and I pulled out a guide permanently. It's also a good thing too, because it turns out that the code wasn't even inside that same house. We have to go inside the neighboring house next door and know that the certificate on the wall is interactable and has the code for the safe. Why would anyone display it on the wall next to the kitchen area of a neighbor's home is just mind-boggling to me, and I think that it just showcases exactly what's wrong with this game. The environments look amazing, and I have to give them that much though. It's immersive and spooky and looks believable enough for it to exist somewhere far from here, but it doesn't matter if you have characters that do stupid stuff for the sake of adding to the runtime. You also have to create a gameplay system which adds to the immersiveness, but doesn't sacrifice the player's overall experience. Lastly, you can't have an enemy who is only challenging because you sacrifice the quality of other gameplay mechanics. If I had to end this review on a silver lining, it would be that the devs are working hard on fixing the frame rate issues and the performance problems that the game has. They've also been listening to the feedback and are making general tweaks, so the game will be in a better state in the near future. Hell, it's actually already in a better state than when I played it, but to me, those aspects matter less as the devs will never be able to fix the fundamental issues that prevent me from recommending this game. On the other hand, if I had to give any recommendations, it would go to the player who's looking for a game with heavy ambience and who has a lot of interest in the subject matter. The game looks really good and feels immersive in a way that we rarely see in the indie sphere, so I do think that it succeeds in fulfilling the fantasy of being chased by aliens. Also, someone who doesn't play horror games on a regular basis will probably get some enjoyment out of it, and if you do so, please let me know in the comment section below. On the other hand, if you thought that the visuals for this video were repetitive and that my video wasn't on the exciting side, well, it's because what you see is essentially what you get. There's no variation of any kind, which is another reason why the game would have benefited from having an encore after that lackluster ending. In the end though, I hope that the devs will analyze the criticism and will learn from it, creating a sequel that is worth our hard-earned cash, because there's definitely some potential here. As it stands, it's not worth the $35 asking price, or more if you actually consider the physical version. $15 would have been the release price in my opinion, because right now, it feels like the only abduction that the game commits is the one in our bank account. I want to take this time to thank you for watching my video. Actually, my last two videos have been doing very well, especially the Gollum one. A lot of people have been liking and subscribing and leaving comments, which has actually been a lot of fun answering to all of you. So thank you for those who actually have commented on it. And thank you for watching this video. Honestly, this few weeks have been really a breeze and they've been fun and it's been a dream. I'm at loss of words, I'm sorry. That's what it is when you play these kinds of games. So I thank you again for your time. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. Maybe leave a comment. I really appreciate it. So with that, thank you for watching and I hope to see you in the next one.